Shalom, and welcome to another edition of the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott Sekulow, and this is a special report on the situation with Barack Obama's pledge to divide Jerusalem, to take it back to the 1948 borders, the pre-69 borders, and why, in this part of the show, we're going to look at why it's not right from a geographic government point of view. In the first part of the series we looked at it from a biblical point of view. Now we're going to take a look at the land itself from the political point of view, dealing with Hamas and Fatah, dealing with the Israeli government, dealing with the safety of the people, and the places of that tourists want to go see, both Jewish and Christians, places that would fall within the East Jerusalem that we would not be allowed to go see. We have to remember, there's places now that we can't go to because it's under the control of the Palestinians. And this will happen to East Jerusalem as well. So first, I wanted to go to a scripture, which is 2 Kings. We're going to pull that up. 2 Kings, chapter 19, verse 34. And it reads, "For I will defend this city to save it, for my own sake, declares the Lord, and for the sake of my servant David." So God's plan is that he loves this land so much that he himself is going to protect it and make sure that it is taken care of, not for our point of view, but for his point of view. So we really have to understand how this all comes together and the importance of Jerusalem in particular to God's plan. So what I want to look at, we're going to look at Jerusalem, we're going to look at the government situations, we're going to look at it from the land point of view, how we're going to deal with the second issue, which is the Palestinian refugees, and then the holy sites, and going back to that land before 67, how it was for Jewish people and Christians to visit the holy sites. So let's first understand why Jerusalem is such a key point. We know that that's where our Messiah is going to return, and he's going to return not to a divided Jerusalem, but a united Jerusalem under the Jewish people, under the control, and we know that is where the third temple must be built. It has to be on the site right now where the Temple Mount is, so that will have to be taken down at one point. I believe God will supernaturally make that happen, and we're going to see God's temple reestablished in Jerusalem. If this land was divided, guess what? That's in East Jerusalem. We wouldn't be able to do this. Key point in understanding this. Now, right now, if you look at the width of Israel, it is a whopping 45 miles long. Taking this land out, it brings it down to 8 miles at its shortest point. This is not defendable. This is a serious issue that we have to understand from a military point of view. You could then not defend. They would be able to attack. They're already getting the long-range missiles that are able to attack different parts of Israel. And this is going to be key to understanding. Let's look what's going on around Israel right now. All the governments, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, are all having political issues, and they're falling, and the Muslim Brotherhood could be the next one taking over. Who are they? They're the ones who birthed Hamas and Fatah and these other organizations. These are political people that are terrorists and that we cannot associate with. Would our president tell us to go talk to a government and negotiate with them if they were in bed with Al-Qaeda? Absolutely not. Why should Israel then? This is an understanding that we cannot deal with terrorists whose goal is to not only destroy Israel, but to kill the Jewish people for one reason and one reason only, because they are God's chosen people. So we have to understand how this comes into place. Also, the issue of the refugees. The Palestinians want to send, even after they get their own land, they then want to send their Palestinians back into Israel to reclaim the land that they said belonged to them, although it originally belonged to the Jewish people. If that's the case, we need to give our land back to the Indians because it originally belonged to them. And so we see here an understanding that if they send those people in, that they will literally destroy the government system, because there are more Palestinians than Jewish people, and they would be able to wipe out our government. That was the plan of Yasser Arafat, and that's still the plan of Abbas today, is to destroy Israel. And that's been their whole plan all along. The idea of Hamas and Fatah coming together is a key point that's trying to do that so they can show the UN that they are united and that they deserve a unilateral giving of permission to have their own statehood. That's what they're trying to do. That's why this government's coming together. Hamas has never denied that they still want to destroy Israel. They've never renounced that, and they never will, because that is their whole purpose. And so we see here the problem. Even our president acknowledged that that's a key issue in dealing with this, but it's always been a key issue. Past presidents have had the same issue, and they cannot deal with it either. So we need to realize that that's not going to happen, and that the Palestinians are not going to be able to come back into Israel as Palestinians and be able to take over the government, and that's what they want to do so that they can destroy Israel completely. So we see here a problem with that. With giving Jerusalem back, again, all the holy sites that are important to the Christians and the Messianic are going to be taken away. We can't even go to many of the Jewish holy sites because they're in the control of Hamas and Fatah. So don't think you're going to be able to go down the Via Dolorosa. You're not going to be able to go into the Garden Tomb or the Mount of Beatitudes, not Mount of Olives. All these places surrounding Jerusalem on the east side will be off limits because they're not going to let you in. The Muslim faith, Islam, does not want any other religion, and they're not going to let us in, just like they did before 67. Remember, the Jewish people were not allowed to go to their most holy site. Why do we think this will change when the Muslims take over? We can't even go on top of the Temple Mount area because it's controlled right now by the Muslims. What happens when they start controlling the Garden Tomb and all these other important places? The same thing will take place. We must understand the importance of what is happening and why we can't trust them. Also, these governments, the Palestinians, have never been able to agree on any part of the deal. Yasser Arafat at one time was offered 99% of everything he wanted, and he turned it down. Why? Because they don't want to have peace. They want all of Israel. They don't want Israel to exist. And that's the problem. And our president has to understand we cannot deal with terrorists. Just like our country will not deal with terrorists, either should Israel, and we should not make Israel do that. We need to look out for Israel's safety. They're our number one ally in the area. They're the ones who we can count on when that world right now is going crazy and governments are falling, but the Israeli government staying strong. Why? Because it is God's plan and purpose, and man cannot do it. Our president has to understand that this is God's time, God's plan, and just like previous presidents, both Republican and Democrat, we cannot expect us to do God's work. Only he can do it. We cannot make peace. The true roadmap of peace is not former President Bush. The true roadmap to peace is through our Messiah Yeshua, where one day every knee will bow, every tongue confess, both Jew and Arab, that Yeshua HaMashiach is Lord, and then we'll take our weapons and turn them into plowshares. That's God's plan and purpose. I want to encourage you to visit our website, rabbiscott.com, for more information. We have more videos and teachings on this matter. You need to stay informed. Check out our radio show as well to get the biblical understanding of the Jewish roots of your faith and the importance of it. This whole purpose is to reach the lost and educate the found. And I want to encourage you to get involved today. Don't stand by. We need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. The scripture tells us to do that. It's God's plan and God's timing. We need to be on God's side, not the devil's. And when we start watching what the devil does, we know that his goal is to destroy Israel, where God is to make it that glorious place so that when he returns, all believers, both Jewish and Gentile, will come together. Remember, the scripture says that in the end days, 10 Gentiles from every nation will grab the hem of the garment of the Jew and say, I want to go with you because God is with you. I believe that's the Messianic Jews as they have received their Jewish Messiah, and our Gentile brothers joining us as equal co-heirs to God's plan. We need to keep informed. Remember to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Shalom.